You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. So Friday, there was a development in the Trey Holly case, and we learned that the grand jury decided not to bring charges of attempted second-degree murder against Trey Holly, which is great news on so many levels, not just a football thing, but just in a real-life circumstance. They did, however, charge Trey Holly with one felony count of illegal use of a weapon or dangerous instrumentality. That coincided, of course, with the open practice on Saturday where media got to watch the entirety of practice and went out there, and obviously there was a heavy workload for Josh Williams and Caleb Jackson, as LSU's got two scholarship running backs out there for spring. Now, it's worth noting that you will get Caden Durham, the freshman, coming to campus in June, and the hope is, obviously, a reinstatement for Trey Holly. Now, after practice, Brian Kelly met with reporters on Saturday and asked Brian for a comment on the Trey Holly situation with, obviously, Friday evening is when we learned of the grand jury's decision. So this was Brian Kelly's comments on Saturday around noon.
I was we had a coach's clinic, and his head high school coach came up to me, who was here at the clinic, and told me that the serious charges were dropped. And so, we were confident based upon information that was shared to us, but you just don't know. I mean, we know Trey Holly. We've been with him.
I don't know Trey Holly, but you heard what Brian Kelly said. You talk to people around Farmerville who say how that's so out of his character. And then, I remember, look, the statement that Trey Holly put on social media back on February 17th is the thing that made me go, okay, I believe the kid. I mean, it was the statement that you would exactly want someone, it was exactly what you would want to see from someone who is charged with that when they adamantly and vehemently deny. I mean, he said, I am, quote, I have been falsely identified, accused, and arrested. I am 100% innocent, and the people that know me know this is not my character at all. I was not involved in the incident at all. I mean, you can't be any more direct than that. That's not the non-denial denial. That's straight up denial. I had nothing to do with this. So there's believability there. And Brian Kelly actually went further and talked about reinstatement for Trey Holly.
We advocated for him to continue his schooling, and we were happy that he was able to continue his schooling here as an online student. So he's maintained his eligibility because of that. So we'll be, obviously monitoring and making sure that, I think they're talking about, sometime in the middle of April that we could see a full resolution to this. At that time, we'll begin the process in assisting him for reinstatement, and we'll advocate for him on his behalf and welcome him back.
It sure sounds like Trey Holly's going to be with his football team. I mean, Brian Kelly said based on the information they have. Again, I'm going to talk about the football component of this in a second, but based on the information they have and that they felt good about it, Trey's statement, knowing Trey Holly, that he was innocent of these charges, and they advocated for him to continue schooling online, so he's maintained his eligibility, and they've already begun the process for whenever this is completed. You heard him say they're in the middle of April, which you would think is in the next week or so, that Trey Holly would then be offered reinstatement and then would be back with the team. Trey Holly played in 3 games last year. So he still maintains his year of eligibility from a season ago. So he essentially would be a redshirt freshman this season. I understand there is a far more serious component of this when you talk about felony charges, but we are a sports show, so part of my responsibility to you, the audience, is to talk about how this impacts LSU on the field. We all sincerely hope that those who are guilty are brought to justice, and if Trey Holly had nothing to do with this, as he said, that he is exonerated and is free to go and continue his career and his life and all that sort of stuff. I think the real question for LSU right now is, what do you do with 2 or potentially a maximum of 3 scholarship running backs? Like, can you sustain that based on the Trey Holly situation? And so far in spring, remember, like, you've got 2. It's such an interesting contrast of a year ago when LSU had 8 scholarship running backs. And Brian Kelly was asked so much throughout fall about having 8 scholarship running backs. Well, John Emery's gone, and Trey Bradford's gone, and Armani Goodwin's gone, and Noah Cain's gone. And so you look up and you're like, man, you're so thankful that Josh Williams is using his 6th year, because otherwise you would just be sitting here in spring with Caleb Jackson. So they've, as Brian Kelly said, like, they've had to be sort of cautious here this spring, having just 2 guys.
It's work volume. You can't run those guys into the ground and have a really good practice, because at the end of the practice, you're doing, a lot of teamwork. And if you're running those guys into the ground, you really can't have the kind of reps that you're looking for. So, we brought in 3 walk-ons who have done a great job. I mean, really have allowed us to practice at a level where they can step in, and whether it's 7-on-7 or it's a half-line pass or a half-line run, have allowed those guys to take a break. So without those guys in particular, we would not be in a really good position in the spring. So we got saved by the bell in terms of the walk-ons at the running back position.
So they're making it work here in spring. But again, it also underscores the point that we talk about all the time. I don't need my veteran players, I don't need my 6th year running back taking reps in spring. I know what Josh Williams is on Saturdays in the SEC. I don't care what he is on a Tuesday in April. I just don't care. Make sure that guy's ready to roll. Same with Caleb Jackson. And Brian Kelly, by the way, one way, and like, I sketched this out today about, like, the sustainability of a running back room with 4 running backs. And I'll talk about that in just a second. But Brian Kelly, this is another super encouraging part about Caleb Jackson, who, man, he wowed with his bullish running style a year ago, even in limited touches and attempts. But listen to Brian Kelly talk about how Caleb Jackson has sort of developed just in this short offseason.
What we've been balancing here is his workload. As you guys know, we have 2 scholarship backs in spring ball. He's a big back. He's growing into his body. So the workload capacity and the fatigue has really taught him how to take care of himself. He's understanding how to eat better, how to hydrate, how to recover. And those are great things, right? I mean, because he cares so much, we'll catch him up on blitz protections and things of that nature. This is how he takes care of his body. So that's where we're at with him. That's the chapter that he's going through. And I'm fine with it because he's learning so much about himself right now.
If you just have Williams and Caleb Jackson, and then you add Caden Durham, is that enough? Obviously, it seems as though they're going to get Trey Holly back. But so I went back and looked at some seasons in recent memory that would be comparable to this. And I think what it shows, obviously, is last year with 8 is a massive outlier. In 2021, Ty Davis-Price was your leading rusher. He had a 1,000-yard season, mostly in part because he ran for 300 yards against Florida that year. But TDP had 211 rushing attempts. Among running backs, next was Corey Kiner with 79. Then you had Josh Williams with 23 and Armani Goodwin with 16. So really, you had one dude that shouldered all of the load and then another guy who spelled him a little bit. Go back to 2019. We all know Clyde was first team All-SEC in 2019. Clyde had 215 reps, rushes, almost the same number as Ty Davis-Price. And then you had TDP that year at 64. Curry had 38. Emery had 39. So really, you've seen these seasons where you've had one running back who's shouldered the lion's share of the carries, and then another guy who's just spelling from time to time. 2018 might actually be the best comp. Nick Brissett that year had 240 rushing attempts. Clyde had 146. Now, your third leading rusher was Burrow with 128. But if you're just talking running backs, You had Brissett with 240, Clyde with 146. Leonard Fournette had 12. Tay Provins had 4. Chris Curry had 8 rushing attempts. So really, it was 2 guys in a run-heavy offense. I think 2018, now this team should pass it a lot better than 2018 did, but that's probably your best comp, where you can look at Williams, Caleb Jackson splitting some 400 carries, 350 to 400 carries, and really being your pace car, your bell cow there. And whatever's left over, late in blowouts, or if someone turns an ankle, God forbid, you'll see maybe Caden Durham, Trey Holly get those reps. Or maybe Trey Holly comes in, if he is back, and you can see sort of a 3-headed monster the way we have seen in the past. The most gratuitous sharing offensively among the carries that I can remember is 2011, where you had Spencer Ware and Alfred Blue and Michael Ford, and then late in his freshman season, we saw Kenny Hilliard emerge. That was an offense that had so much talent at running back and shared the ball because they could. I think what this exercise proved, though, is you're not going to have 8 like you did last year, but 4 can be plenty in this offense. I think it will be. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.